am so deeply honored to introduce to all of you to the podium Tim Wise, who is an American anti-racism activist, a writer, a trainer. My list of white men that I love very much is quite short, and Tim Wise makes that list. He is actually the true embodiment of allyship and using his privilege to talk about issues of race and racism, and he makes other white people feel really uncomfortable, and I enjoy watching it. So please give it up to Tim Wise.
So when you said that your list of white men that you like is really short, there's part of me that was like, is that about me being 5'8", or is that just like a really, is the list short or the guy short? All right, I mean, you know, I'm 51. I've had plenty of time to get over that shit, so I'm good. All right. Thank you so much. It is a huge honor to be here at UMass, and I want to thank all the folks that made this event possible and included me in it. I was trying to think of what my unique contribution would be this evening, and I decided, given the Chancellor's comments before this event and surrounding controversy around the event, that I would take my time to speak to this matter, not merely as someone who has certainly studied the Palestine-Israel conflict and the surrounding issues, but more importantly as a Jew who is incredibly tired of being told by other people, whether Jews and certainly when Gentiles, what anti-Semitism is. And being told, whether by Jews or other Gentiles, what self-hating Judaism is. I have been Jewish a long ass time. I've been Jewish for 51 years. I've been white just as long. I know the Nazis don't think those two things are possible together because they are Nazis. I am not speaking to you. But I am suggesting that when you were on this earth as someone who is Jewish for 51 years, you will have experience with actual anti-Semitism, and you will know the real thing from the imposter thing. And I don't need anyone to tell me what attacks the dignity of Jewish people, as your Chancellor suggested this event somehow does, right? Because my family and I have a long history of having our dignity attacked not by Muslims, not by Palestinians, not by supporters of BDS, not by critics of Israel, but by good Christian men like Mike Pence, who insist that Jews like me will burn in a lake of fire for all eternity until we stop being Jews. That is the ultimate in anti-Semitic invective. That is the ultimate anti-Jewish bigotry. That is the ultimate in the attack on the dignity of Jewish people. And yet we got folks in this country that suck up to that nonsense, even though those folks say, oh, I love Israel, and they say, I support Zionism and I oppose BDS, but they believe that your Judaism makes your soul an empty vessel. To hell with them, and to hell with anybody that throws down with them. And I would suggest to you that if you are someone who believes that Jews are inferior spiritually, your views on Israel are of no consequence to me, and ought not be of any consequence to anyone who actually cares about the well-being of Jewish people anywhere on the planet, in this country or anywhere else. My great-grandfather was run out of Russia by actual anti-Semites. My father's Jewish community center was bombed by actual anti-Semites in 1957. My temple had Klansmen drive up onto the driveway when I was 13 years old, attempt to bomb it and to kill my rabbi. When I got out of college, the first thing I did was fight against David Duke, an actual Nazi, an actual anti-Semite, when he ran for the U.S. Senate and governor in Louisiana, for which we had constant death threats. Last December, my family, my children, my wife, myself were the victims of constant harassment, death threats, people coming to our house, calling our house, texting us on a regular basis, threatening to kill us all. Actual anti-Semites, not one of them Muslim, not one of them Palestinian, not one of them a supporter of BDS, not one of them a critic of Israel, all of them doing so in the name of good, God-fearing Christianity and white supremacy. So I do not need your chancellor, and I do not need anyone else to tell me what anti-Semitism is. let me be very clear. If there is anything that attacks the dignity of Jews, it is the kind of thing that many of us who are Jewish were raised on that actually encouraged us to shut down this discussion before any state tried to ban it, before any campus tried to ban it. We censor ourselves. And I know this because today before I live in Nashville. So not only am I Jewish, y'all, I'm from Nashville, y'all. So the struggle is real. When you are Jewish in Nashville, where like every four-way stop, there are 3 churches, right? And like the fourth corner is like a Walgreens or whatever the hell, but like, and every pastor is telling you that you're going to hell in between trying to get their record deal. So, you know, the struggle is real. But as I was leaving Nashville today, I looked up on my bookshelf in my home office and I found a book from my 8th grade Hebrew school class. Now, it's an old ass book, y'all. I was in 8th grade in 1981. In 1982, this book was written in 1980, but I brought it with me because there's a passage in here that I think symbolizes the way that we who are Jews have silenced ourselves on these important matters for too long. It isn't just about other people trying to silence criticism of Israel, trying to silence support for BDS, or trying to silence criticism of Zionism itself. It is what we do. So here's what I was taught as a child, because see, propaganda runs deep and it works. It does a number on us, and we do this to ourselves. So this book that I was asked to read when I was 13 years old, called Great Jewish Debates and Dilemmas. The subtitle is Jewish Perspectives on Moral Issues in Conflict in the 80s. All right, so dude needs an editor, first off. That's a long title. But this book, by the way, was published by the publishing arm of Reform Judaism, right? Which at that time was the most liberal, you know, sort of house of Judaism within the United States. Reconstructionism wasn't really a thing yet. It was sort of Reform was like, these were the liberal folks, right? And so you go through this book and there's Jewish perspectives on everything: abortion, Jewish perspectives on taxes, Jewish perspectives on immigration, Jewish perspectives on gun control. And there are all kinds of differences, right? There's like a debate that they present in here. But you get to the section on Israel, Zionism, and the Jewish people. Here's the first paragraph. You want to understand how we got to where we are right now? Here's where the first paragraph comes in. It says, if we Jews have one commitment which suffers no ambivalence, if we have one bond which unifies each and every one of us, it is our profound solidarity with the people in the state of Israel. We may differ about God and religion, politics and education, but on Israel we are solidly united. All Jews consider themselves Zionists. And then this section goes on to say, our self-esteem, our very self-identification is tied to the fate of Israel. Diaspora survival is linked to Israel's survival in the minds of most Jews. See, when you lay it out like that, and when you say that we all agree, but I remember I have question marks in the margin that I wrote when I was 12, y'all. And 13, I was like, what? Nobody polled me. Nobody asked me. The rabbi was coming around taking up my tzedakah money, telling me that I was giving this money so that we could plant trees in somebody else's olive grove. And I was like, why are we doing that? And they were like, you don't need to ask these questions, just read this book, see? And we're all united. But when you suggest that the debate even internally is not acceptable, when you say, because what this is a family telling you that they will disown you if you speak out. That's what that is. That is a family telling you they will withhold love from you if you do not go. That is abuse. And we would see it as such in any other capacity. That attacks the dignity of Jewish people, not this forum, right? Actually, suggesting that those of us who are Jews must act as automatons devoid of ability or the need to question things. And the irony of shutting down questioning around Israel and even around Zionism itself, shutting down questioning and inquiry is like the least Jewish thing you can do, y'all. Like, the one thing I know about Judaism, I've forgotten a lot, you know, because I'm like a militant agnostic, which I know is like a contradiction in terms, because agnostics are like, you know, whatever. But one thing that I remember very well about Judaism is predicated on inquiry and questioning and debate. If you've read the Talmud is basically a bunch of rabbinical scholars got together to try to work some shit out. And they're arguing amongst themselves. And if you read it, it's completely contradictory. It is completely inconsistent because there are all these different opinions being shared. It's like if you were just taking the minutes of a meeting of a bunch of rabbinical scholars and some dude in the corner is like, how about this? And somebody else is like, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of. How about this? That's Jewish teaching and Talmudic learning. It is about inquiry. It is about question. It is about dissent. And so to suggest that questioning our particular stance vis-a-vis Israel, both the government of and Zionism as a political movement, is incredibly anti-Jewish. That assaults the dignity of Jewish people, not this forum. In fact, here's another irony. Shutting down that inquiry feeds the very stereotypes upon which anti-Semites prosper. Right? Because what are the stereotypes about our people? Right? Our stereotypes about our people are, well, you're very clannish, and you all stick together, and you only care about what's good for the Jews, and it's almost like a conspiracy to run the world. And then Jews are like, we're not going to ever allow dissent within our own community because to do so is anti-Semitic. That feeds the very notion of clannishness. It feeds the very idea that we don't care about the rights and humanity of other people. And that's not to say that we're to blame for the anti-Semitism when it happens, but when we feed into that mindset by not questioning, I can assure you that there are actual anti-Semites, actual modern Nazis who take great pleasure in that. And I know this because I get letters from them, messages from them, tweets from them all the time. They haven't done their homework because, I don't know, Nazis Are Us research department sort of sucks, I guess. So they don't, use Google effectively. So they haven't actually done their homework on me, but they know I'm Jewish. They're like, what about Israel? What about the treatment of Palestinians? What about laws that provide Jews greater opportunity to buy land in Israel than those who were non-Jews? What about laws against intermarriage? What about, I don't, A, know this stuff, and B, haven't condemned it, right? And then when you do as a Jew speak out against those things, they have no response. These white supremacists, these neo-Nazis, these white nationalists, these anti-Semites are not prepared for Jews who are prepared to criticize that which we do. Right? And when we stand tall in solidarity with Palestinian people, it knocks those Nazis off balance, it knocks actual anti-Semites off balance, and it proves that we are not of one mind, except insofar as we believe in justice and will damn sure fight for it. That is the only thing that we have to insist upon. One last thing. If anything attacks the principles of Jewish dignity, I'm going to suggest, and I've felt this way for a long time, and I am perfectly willing to debate the subject. That's the point, right? Debate and inquiry. If you want to argue against BDS, argue against BDS. If you want to argue in favor of Zionism, argue in favor of Zionism. If you want to argue in favor of the Netanyahu government, good luck with that, but, do your thing, right? Feel free to do whatever it is you want to do, but argue the point rather than trying to shut it down. See, my argument would be that many of the founding principles upon which Israel is based, and many of the philosophical principles of Zionism itself, are things that we ought to be willing as Jews to debate and to question. And I want to encourage everyone in this room who is Jewish to be bold enough and brave enough to do it, because it was Theodor Herzl who said this. It was Theodor Herzl who said, the philosophical founder of political Zionism, it was he who said that anti-Semitism was, quote, an understandable reaction to Jewish defects. That was not David Duke who said that. That was not Adolf Hitler who said that. That was the philosophical father of modern Zionism and the Jewish state. And then if I were to ask you who said this, each country can only absorb a limited number of Jews if she doesn't want disorders in her stomach. Germany already has too many Jews. Now, you might be inclined to think that was Hitler who said that, or someone in his government who said that. I assure you it was not. It was Chaim Weizmann who said that. At the time, he was with the World Zionist Organization. He would later become the president of Israel. That is a Jew telling the rest of the world that we are a problem and that we bring hatred upon ourselves, that we will never be safe because we are hated and hunted because we deserve it. What is self-hate exactly? Is it this panel? Is it BDS? Is it criticism of Israel? Is it criticism of Zionism? Or is it the founding principles of Zionism itself? So if you want to debate the merits of these issues, by all means, feel free. But as Jews, we must be free to demand open inquiry, open debate, both for the sake of the Palestinian people and for the sake of ourselves, the future of this country when it comes to politics, and the globe when it comes to politics and human rights depend on that. So as a Jew, I implore you to support not only BDS, but more importantly, at the very least, to support the debate around this. And if you want to argue the points, argue them, but to suggest that this is an anti-Semitic movement, to argue that this violates the dignity of Jews as Jews when there are actual people out there who would hunt us and hate us into oblivion, is an obscenity. And I thank you all so much for having me here this evening.